I feel like for black men, I feel like white supremacy sort of sets itself up to have black men lusting after, particularly white women, but also to an extent, just even just any type of woman that ain't black, really. Um, and that is by design, right? That's by design. And as well, I think when it comes to black men's, you know, lust and interest in especially white women, I think that's also by design too, because historically, like black men and black and white women, like that relationship, it was very taboo. It was very forbidden. And I think all that over centuries led to this sort of like lust that I think both sides kind of have at times. You know, and speaking historically, since we're on the topic, I feel like black men, like, okay, let's go back to the slave plantation, right? I know I don't like going back to those days, but we got to go back to those days sometimes because that's how we help put things into perspective and make sense of things that are happening today. Okay. But on the plantation, you had typically black men, black women, white men, right? As we know, white men were raping black women. And perhaps there were some black women who were going along with it willingly, perhaps. But I like to think that it was rape versus, because the way some of these dudes online be putting it is like, black women just turn her back on a black man and just, you know, willingly became a bed wench, and I really don't think that's true, you know, in most cases. Now, some individual cases, perhaps. I'm pretty sure there was some coon ass motherfuckers on the plantation back then. We got some coon ass, coontastic Negroes now. So, yeah, all right, on both in both genders, of course, in both genders, right? Um, so yeah, so the black man is on the plantation. He's seen, his woman, his female counterpart, who he is supposed to be with, romantically, sexually, and what have you, being raped by white men, and having children with white men. So think about that dynamic. How do you think that black man is feeling seeing this happen and seeing this go down, right? Again and again and again throughout history. Well, yeah, I guess throughout history, historically, right? Again and again and again, right? So, of course, this black man is perhaps feeling somewhat resentful, right? And this kind of perhaps part of the reason that he wanted to swirl, or he started to swirl, even though the stakes were like much higher if he got caught swirling. You know, if he got caught swirling with white women, then his life was over. He was terminated either on site or either made a big spectacle of, like, oh, everyone gather around while we lynch this Negro to let the rest of you Negroes know, don't you come around our white women, right? Um, but nevertheless, black men were still pursuing these, relationships, whether they are romantic or sexual, what have you. And as well, white women were willingly participating in these relationships. There are even historical accounts of white women actually getting pregnant by black men on the slave plantation, and perhaps her family sending her away for a while, and then bringing her back like after she like had her child and all that. You know that did happen. Not like to the extent that it happened with black women, of course, but it did happen. So I say all of this to say I think history plays a part in this as well, because historically black men have not really had access to white women. while on the other hand, black women have had access to white men and also black men, while her white counterpart, the white female, has not had access to black men. She has historically only had access to white men, right? Because she couldn't be getting down with black men like that. Like, white men were not having that. They were not having that. So while it did happen, it had to be very covert, very secretive. You know, it couldn't just happen like the way that it happened with black women and white men.